I am on a challenging quest to design an automatic farm for every single item in the game of Minecraft. There's almost 1,400 items and I'm over 95% to completing it. Hello there, Ray here, and that means I need to design a farm for the most powerful weapon in the game. So to make my Mace Farm, we first need to get the two ingredients to craft it, the heavy core and the breeze rod. The heavy core come from the ominous vaults, but to get those opened up, you do need a ominous key. And to get an ominous key, we need to defeat a ominous trial spawner. But to start a ominous trial, we need to drink a ominous bottle. And we can get an ominous potion from a normal vault, but that needs a normal trial key. And to get that, we need to defeat a normal trial spawner, but luckily we'll be defeating these anyways, as this is where the breeze mob comes from in order to get the breeze rod for the handle of the mace. But before we can do any of that, we need to find a trial chamber structure. Now you can do this by purchasing a trial map from a journeyman level cartographer, but this map will only point you to the nearest structure, but we'll need to find several trial chambers in order to pull off the Mace Farm. So we can't depend on this villager who will always keep pointing us to the same structure. Now if you know the seed of your world, you can use chunkbase.com in order to see where all the different trial spawners are located. But if you don't know your seed, there's still a cool way you can find them without using maps. We'll do this by using the debug menu. F3+1, you get this little pie chart in the bottom right. Then if you go to the ticked category, which is number 3 for me, and then go to the level category, which is number 1. I'm pushing these buttons on the actual keyboard. And then you want to go to the block entities category by pressing the number 3 key. And then now we get to this area where it says unspecified. And if you happen to be loading a chest or a mob spawner, you can see they're popping up on screen. So that means there is a normal mob dungeon nearby. But if I go ahead and increase my render distance, hopefully we can see some other stuff in the area. All of a sudden we see some new ones in the area. If we look at the label on these new ones, you can see they're Vault and Trial Spawner. And Vaults and Trial Spawners are only in the new Trial Chambers. That means there is a Trial Spawner near us, but it can be a little bit difficult to tell exactly where it is. And essentially what we're looking for is the Trial Spawner, which is unique to the Trial Chamber. So you can see as soon as I put this block in, it updated on the F3 over there. If I would remove it and then refresh it, it no longer appears. So if I just put this trial spawner over here somewhere in one of these chunks, we'll see if we can actually figure out where this is just by using the pie chart rather than actually looking for it. But once you increase your render distance, it's going to show up in the pie chart. And then what we'll do is we'll slowly decrease it by 1 each time, and then we'll refresh the pie chart. And we'll keep doing this until it no longer shows up on the pie chart. Let's do it again. Still there. And now it's no longer there. We know that the trial spawner just got unloaded on the edge. So either that direction on the edge, or this one, or this one. We don't know which direction it is. So to test this, we just hop across each of these chunk borders. So we're gonna hop across this direction, to the right, we didn't find anything. Let's go back to behind us, nothing. To the left, nothing shows up in the chart. But if we go forward, notice it immediately shows up. So now that it shows up, we know that it's in front of us, somewhere along this line of new chunks that got loaded. Since we are on a render distance of 3, this means we can move up 3 chunks. So 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to move up 1 more to take into account block processing chunks, which are also being loaded and can actually detect the trial spawner. That means we know the trial spawner is either to the left of us or to the right of us. Now we can definitely see it's to the left of us. But if we didn't know, the next step we would have to do is we have to lower our render distance back down to 2, and then we would backtrack where we came from a total of 3 chunks. So 1, 2, 3. Now from here, if we refresh it, we can see that it's still being loaded by us. And what we're going to do is we're going to move to the right or to the left to figure out if the trial spawner is on the right side or the left side of where we're at. Now we know it's already on the left, but let's pretend we don't know, and let's say we're going to test for the right side. We're going to do this by moving to the left by 1 chunk and refreshing the pie chart. And we can see that the trial spawner is still here, and we just keep doing this total of 3 times. We do it there, and we do it here, and each time it's still being loaded, and then we go all the way back to the center. Now we know it's not on the right side. So now we're going to test and see if it's on the left side, and we do this by moving over by 1 chunk and loading our pie chart. and we can immediately see that there is no longer a trial spawner because we left the loaded area. So we know that the chunk that has a spawner is in that direction. And since we're on a render distance of 2, we would go 1, 2, and then go 1 extra, and then that's where the trial spawner is going to be at. And we can do the same thing in a normal world. It's just a bit more difficult to keep track of which chunk you're in, but I can do the last bit here. So right now we have a trial spawner. If I move over to the right, we still have one, and if I move over to the right again, all of a sudden it's gone. So I know the trial spawner is 1, 2, 3. It's in this chunk here. And if we would dig down all the way down below the stone layer into the deep slate layer, this is where the actual trial spawner is at, and there it is right there in this chunk here, with the rest of the structure being further out in the direction we were walking. And you can get really proficient at this technique like speedrunners in order to find these structures, so you don't have to bother trading for maps. So now that we can easily find these structures, let's talk about how we're going to get enough keys to get the maze. Have you left a like on the video yet? Now my first trial key farm still works. If I just go into survival mode, these spawners are all going to activate. There's a total of 5 of them. And the mobs are going to be placed in around the spawner, and then they're immediately going to start burning on fire. Now in this farm, we're not focused on getting the loot from the actual mob, but instead we're getting just the keys that come out of the spawner. After they die, they open up and the keys come out, as well as other loot. And what we have underneath of them is a hopper minecart that's on a rail, that's on top of a hopper, and pushing all the loot into the chest here. One of the best places to put in this type of farm is here in this vertical room, as there are several trial spawners that can all be activated from 14 blocks away. So even though I'm sitting here, I can activate those 2, I can activate those 2. They do need to have a line of sight, that's why I used glass blocks on top of them. And there is a final one that's right there, and if I had a solid block on top, it wouldn't be able to see me. And those glass blocks are also to stop the mobs from spawning on top of the spawner where they wouldn't die. And since they do have a 30-minute cooldown, by activating as many as possible, you can get many more keys per hour this way. This design also works with the ominous bottle, so that all these turn into trial omen ones. As long as you're protected by blocks as well as above you, different projectiles won't be able to kill you. You can see they're spawning in all over the place. Depending on what type of projectiles, they could end up spawning in like silverfish or slime, but just make sure that they also die into the flame. The ominous ones do last a lot longer since there's more mobs and they have more protective gear, but just like the other ones, they will eventually finish and you get to the ominous keys. But instead of just going for the keys, why don't we also go for the mob's loot? With the best loot coming from the breeze mob, so I'll show you guys how to build up 4 different types of breeze mob farms. One that uses an auto clicker or a wait on the keyboard, one where you can just AFK with looting, one that uses dogs, and lastly my favorite, where you store up the breezes and kill them later. Before we get started, make sure you check the description for the latest versions of the farm or any new tips. And I did design these farms to work in Java Edition, but the general idea should also apply to Bedrock Edition. So now you just need to find a breeze spawner. These are typically sort of in the center. As long as the bottom of the spawner doesn't see your eyes, it won't actually activate. So we can use this to our advantage and stack up here, and then we can come in and actually place in some blocks over top of the spawner, because the spawner can only put in stuff if it can actually see nearby blocks to place the breeze on top of. So we can just do this, and if we just place some blocks around here and here, now the spawner is completely blocked off and we don't have to worry about breezes spawning while we are working on the farm. But do be aware of other spawners in the area. Now I'll put in the collection system to hold all the loot once we kill the breezes. Then we're going to have 3 hoppers going across, putting everything inside of there. There'll be a composter on top of that, a trapdoor here that opens up that direction, and one over here opening up that direction. Then we'll come in with walls on this side like so, as well as this side, and a block here, here, here. Then we can come out and switch out this block like so, as well as here and here. This is where the player is going to AFK. We're going to have a block in right there, and one over here with a top trapdoor right there, with a block on the back side of that. Then we're going to finish this up by placing glass on top of this, just so you can kind of watch it from above. And we're placing a redstone torch here, and then to use the farm, hop into this composter here, flip the trapdoor. This will put you in a crouching mode. And then lastly, you can remove this block here and place in a redstone torch there. And then you can also remove this block and place in a redstone torch over there. This block can also be swapped out with a nice pretty block. Now the farm is ready to use. You just have to AFK here and aim straight forward and then turn your auto clicker on. This OP auto clicker 3.0 works really good. Setting the time to 1000 milliseconds is perfect, and then you just push the button, which is F6. And this will continue to click with your player. As soon as a breeze spawns in over top of one of these hoppers, it will be somewhere here in the center, and that's why I'm aiming here, and then we'll just end up killing the breeze. You can also auto click without an actual macro just by coming into your control settings here where the keybinds are and changing your left mouse button, which is used for attack, to a number on your keyboard. Then if you just place a weight on that key on your keyboard, it will automatically make your person spam the attack key. Make sure to move back the farthest block so you don't end up mining the blocks behind the breeze. When the breeze dies, these hoppers will pick up the loot and will send it all over here to the chest. And you can already see we got 11 blaze rods, as we were using a looting 3 enchanted sword, which helps out a lot. Plus we also get the loot from the trial spawner, which can include the trial keys. And this version of the farm also works with the ominous potion, as normally a spawner will only produce mobs every 30 minutes. You can actually negate this cooldown by turning it into an ominous trial spawner. Once again, you can do the same type of thing where you just whack here in the center and go AFK. The nice thing about the ominous ones, instead of just producing 2 breezes, it'll instead produce 4 breezes. And once completed, you'll get better loot, including the new type of key, the ominous trial key. Now if you change the farm just a little bit, you can make it work without needing a auto clicker. Now the way this is done is, instead of constantly swinging and killing the breeze, we're going to just hold our looting sword in our main hand. We're also going to have a food source in our offhand to heal us. And we're going to wear some protection armor. Projectile is the best, but you can pull this off just by using some normal diamond armor with protection. But you do need to have thorns 3 on each of the pieces. So what happens is the breeze will attack you, and there's nothing to prevent the breeze wind charges from hitting you. And when it hits you, it has a high chance at the thorns doing damage back at the breeze. Even though the breeze has quite a bit of health, after a few hits it will die. This does do quite a bit of damage back to the armor, so we are using the XPs that come off of the dead breeze to repair the armor by using the mending enchantment. But even by having the best projectile protection armor, the breeze will still do damage to the player. And that's where the food comes in. So the way you run this farm is you would first fill up your hunger as well as your health, get that completely full. And then you'd also want to have a full stack of food in your offhand. And then you're ready to go AFK. You just want to hold down right click, and then while holding that, press F3 plus T, and this will bring up the screen here. And then after it goes away, the game will remember that you held down right click. And this way our character can automatically eat the food in their offhand without us being there. We can actually tab out by doing Alt Tab, so we can be in a completely different window. And you can see our character is still automatically able to eat, even though we don't have control of the Minecraft window anymore. Now you could choose to use a regen beacon instead of food, or you can even come into the loot chest here, grab some of the food and give it back to the player so they can continue to eat, or even take some of these regen potions, brew them into splash ones and splash them onto the player. But rather than do all of that, just a lot easier to AFK long periods of time with a full stack of food in your offhand. And just by having some decent armor as well as food, you can last around 10 hours before your armor will break. That's just because the breeze itself would only spawn in 4 breezes per hour, so you really don't get that much damage done to you. Compared to this situation here, which I have a command that's actually resetting the spawner, so we can kind of test it over long periods of time. And this was all tested on hard difficulty. And to make sure the XPs come to the player, we do have some lovely soul sand or mud here, so the XPs don't get caught in the bottom of the hopper. We also have a ladder here, so I can just traverse this little hole here, and we can also access the chest and check out all the loot we're getting. There's also some other blocks nearby just to prevent the spawner from spawning breezes outside of the area. And that's the downside to this farm, since the player is not moving. We're only activating one spawner, which has a 30-minute cooldown period, unlike the final breeze farm, which I'll show, which can actually get you much higher rates by moving the player around. And turning it into an ominous event also works for this version of the farm, as the things that fall from the sky don't interfere with the player, even though they're over here, and if you use some mud there, unlike soul sand, it won't get fire placed on top of it. And the potion effects that do come off of it also don't affect you. But you might be wondering, why don't we just use a dog to do the killing on behalf of the player? And that's what this design does here. If I have the player sitting over here, and if I just sit and hold a shield, the breeze will try to attack me. It can't actually do any damage to me because the shield prevents that. And instead the breeze just ends up backing into the boat in the distance where I have a dog. Because the breeze does attack me, even though it doesn't do damage to me, the dog gets mad and will attack the breeze. And when shields came out, I came up with this crazy concept, which I used in this breeze farm here. And what's so cool about it is that it doesn't even do any damage to the shield. You don't need any food or any armor, you just need one shield and you'll be good to go. And the reason why the player is sitting in a boat so they can't get pushed around by the breeze, which uses up hunger, it would eventually make the player die from starvation. But in order to get the looting effect, we do need to make sure that the player is holding the looting sword in their main hand. But what's also needed for the looting effect to apply is that the player themselves need to do the last killing damage of the breeze. And you might see the problem here. The problem is, we're actually not doing the last damage. The dog is. Even though it's our dog, since the dog is killing it, it's considered our kill, but it doesn't apply the looting. So we are getting the XPs from it, just as if we killed it, but we're not actually getting the looting effect. And because the looting effect makes such a big deal when it comes to breeze loot, I don't think it's worth running this type of farm, even though it's pretty cool to see it set up like this. So just by AFKing these simple farms, you can end up with a whole bunch of trial keys and ominous keys, which you can then use on vaults. The normal keys can be used in these orange vaults and can give a wide variety of nice loot, where the ominous keys are used in these special ominous vaults, which give much better loot, including the new heavy core, which can be combined with a breeze rod in order to make the mace, considered to be the strongest weapon in Minecraft, and can even be used to one-hit the dragon, wither, and warden. You can learn more about that in this video here, and I talked more about how the mace all works in this video here linked below. Now, even though each vault block can only be looted one time per player, you can still use this farm to collect a whole bunch of both type of keys, and then go on an adventure finding these trial chambers and just looting them all rather than having to do any fighting. This will make it much easier in order to get the mace, as on average you'll have to open up 45 ominous trial vaults in order to get a chance at it. Make sure you're subscribed because I have many more new farms. So we will want to be more efficient at getting the keys and the rods. And that's where my portal design comes in. Once again, we're going to find a breeze spawner, and if you want to, you can avoid fighting it just by keeping your head out of the zone of the bottom of the spawner. And we can come in with some blocks and block it off. Blocks there and there, as well as there and there. And don't forget to block off the other sides so that they can't find a location to spawn in mobs. This makes your stack up close, that way you don't have a direct line of sight and start the spawner up. You can even choose to come in and mine out the spawner. You gotta be a bit careful, you don't want to activate it, but you can mine it from a distance. Although destroying these spawners take a long time, but they can't get destroyed by TNT. And you can't like silk touch them or move them, they just get destroyed. So now that all the spawners are blocked off, this one here is a breeze one, as you can see with the curly tough block. So from the location of spawner, we're going to go over here and we're going to place in the top part of the portal. Then we can swap out that block with obsidian, and the portal is going to be down here. And we're going to just finish it off like so. Now that we have the portal in, we're going to have a room for the breeze to spawn in, but we don't want to remove this dirt here yet, otherwise it'll spawn in prematurely. We'll swap this one out, so that's the bottom of the spawner. Then we'll come in with the floor. The floor is going to be at this level down here. Going from underneath the spawner, we're going to go out 2 blocks this direction, 1 block that direction. We're also going to go out 2 blocks this direction, and on this side over here, we're also going to go out a total of 2 blocks. Now we can remove the other blocks in this area. We're going to also swap out the bottom of this one, as that is the other spawner. If you don't have any other spawners in areas, don't worry about those. Now we're just going to fill in this floor, as this is the area where the breeze will be spawning in. And just like that, we have the spawn area. Now we're going to put in some walls so the breeze can't get out. So we're going to fill in this wall so that it is 3 tall, like so. Also fill in this wall all the way across, just like that. And then we're going to do the same thing to this side over here. Fill this all in so the breeze can't escape. So now once it spawns in here, we don't want it to fly out anywhere else. So also fill on this side, and we want to get it into this portal here. We're also going to collect the loot in the floor here, and the chest is going to pick up the loot using these hoppers here. And then we can come in and light up our portal. And now we don't want the breeze to go out the top of it. We're going to place some glass all around the outside of this here. I use glass just so you can watch the farm as it's working. Otherwise you can use whatever block type you want to. We're then going to remove any blocks that are just above these dirts here. The rest of them will be filled in like this, and those are going to be open. Now we're going to place glass over top of each of these holes here. That way the items that come off of the spawner end up going down in with the breeze. And we'll access our chest from over here. If you want to, you can make it a double chest. And make sure to have a stair over top of this chest. Otherwise the spawner could place a mob through this hole here and like over here. And then we have to go over into the nether dimension. Well, first we'll put a door in here to prevent anything from going in. So now we want to go through the portal, just as the breeze would. And then we want to check which direction we're facing. Right here you can see we are facing north. That's important because when the breeze pops out the other side, it's going to end up also facing north. So we want to build the rest of the farm on this side here. I'm just going to put in the glass so I can kind of watch the farm as it's working. But we're going to place in an area just to collect the breeze so we can kill them all at once at a later time. So put in some scaffolding so they don't get entity cramming. And then we'll try to connect up the portal with some landmass so that they think they can walk over here. But we'll avoid them from actually walking out by placing in some trapdoors. And we'll just stack them up like this. And then lastly, we'll come in and place in some blocks around here so that the breeze have a place where their head will sit. And they'll get stuck up there with their feet down here so we can attack them. And then come in and also block off the backs of the portal so they don't end up going this direction. And I can go ahead and close off those. And then we can go through here again. Now we're ready to put in the actual water. That's going to push everything into the portal over there. And we can sneak out the backside, close up this door here. And now we're ready to remove the dirt that is around the breeze spawner so that will actually spawn in mobs. I'm going to do it from this side over here. Let's remove some of these blocks here so we can reach it. Remove that one, that one, that one, that one. See the breeze gets pushed in by the water and goes into another dimension. Remove that one. There's another breeze. Now the spawner is complete. Now put out the loot. We'll put a block on top of this so that the loot gets pushed sideways, and a block over here as well. And then we'll close this up once again. Now when you're ever AFKing, it's good to box yourself in so nothing can ever attack you. And it's especially good if you're using this farm with the ominous potion. Because when you drink the ominous potion, it's going to summon in stuff like arrows and projectiles on top of your head and try to kill you. But as long as you have a block up there, it won't spawn them up there. And they won't be able to reach you. And the other nearby potion effects aren't actually deadly towards the player. Now you could get all your ominous potions from pillager captains at an outpost. But while you're using up all the different keys that you get, you also end up with just a whole bunch of ominous potions along the way. So then just use those to turn your spawners back into more ominous ones. And then after you AFK'd the farm for a long while, you can always check on the loots from here, or when you're ready to actually kill the breeze, get your looting sword and come over here to these scaffolding blocks and then just climb up to this level here. The breezes can't actually attack you because their head's up or above it, but you have access to their feet, and then you can just whack at their feet to kill them and get tons and tons of breeze rods. And each one of the rods can be broken down into 5 wind charges, and wind charges are a really cool item. I talk about all their cool uses in this video here, which I'll link below. So with looting, each of these types of breeze farm produces 6 breeze rods per breeze, meaning you can get 24 breeze rods per hour per spawner. And you get a 50% chance on the trial keys and a 30% chance of getting the ominous ones. So if you want higher rates, you want to move the player between all the different spawners within each of these trial chambers. There's at least 3 different fighting rooms, and the fighting rooms typically will have a breeze spawner in it. So if you're caring about breeze rods, you want to move the player to like one of the chambers and then move it over to the next one, which also has it. And the neat thing is, as long as you come by in survival, you will start it, and then once it's started up, it'll continue to spawn in mobs and remove them even if you're no longer in the area, as long as the chunks are being loaded. You can automatically chunk load areas by using these chunk loaders here. I talk all about that in this video here, which I'll link down below. Now, if you do care about keys, then you can go ahead and load up the other trial spawners. That way you get a lot more keys per hour. Now, probably the best way to move the player between each of these is by having the player sit on a minecart and then having them getting moved around like a roller coaster. And now that players on minecarts can even go through nether portals, you can transport the player from different types of trial chambers, as these are not too far apart from each other. So once you go through the nether, you can easily end up getting closer to another one, and then loading that one, allowing you to get way more breeze rods instead of just using a single trial chamber. Now see how I designed an automatic farm for every other item in the game of Minecraft with this playlist here, and donate to my PayPal if you want to leave me a surprise. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!